Our good friend Bob Vanderplas is here with us. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Good football. I mean, if you like the Iowa Hawkeyes, and I know all your audience does, but go Hawks. They're playing really well right now.
It's the most Iowa thing ever to finally figure out how to build an offense around a running quarterback, and it's a white guy from South Dakota, right? Okay. That is the most Iowa Hawkeye thing of all time. But right now, they are playing very well.
And you know what? They're 2 close defeats away from being ranked in the top 3 in the country. And, I mean, Indiana's ranked number 2.
Yep.
And they should have beat Indiana.
Yep.
And Iowa State, when I feel bad for Cyclones, I like Cyclones as well.
Are you here to announce you're running for governor?
No.
All right, because the reason we had to start the national show off by
I love the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, we had to completely placate and pander to Hawkeye and Cyclone fans on a national show.
Yeah, and the Panthers and the Bulldogs, they're pretty good too.
Indeed.
So
yes. All right. Let's get to issues the rest of the country cares about.
I'd love to.
All right. The government shutdown. Who cares? Does it seem like anybody really cares about this right now?
Well, from a guy who travels a lot, and that's why I just find it kind of ironic. Kristi Noem is on a public service commercial basically saying the government shut down, call your Democrats, tell them to get off the ball. We need to get air traffic control and these things run the way they should. And then you get pushed off from the gate and you're on the tarmac, and the first thing you're going to hear if you're flying through Denver or Dallas or Houston or Chicago, all the major hubs, you're going to say, listen, we've been grounded for 45 minutes on the tarmac. And the reason is because air traffic control can no longer handle this, and it's all due to the government shutdown. And so when I'm looking at this government shutdown thing, and you're seeing how people are trying to play this, I'm trying to think who wins. Because in 2026, it's all about who controls the midterms. And so right now, if you're Trump, if you're Speaker Johnson, if you're Majority Leader Thune, you've got to believe the government shutdown is aiding and assisting your efforts for the midterms with the Republicans. And yet, if you're the Democrats, you've got Jeffries and Schumer, whoever they've got up there lately, they got to be thinking this benefits the Democrats. And my big question is that who does it really benefit in 2026? And it depends what issues are going to be top of mind. But I believe Trump, I like his impulse of saying, they elected a new sheriff in town. We're giving him a new sheriff in town. We're not going to keep funding all this garbage that I said we're not going to keep funding. And so I'm gonna lock her down. And I think Jeffries and Schumer, maybe they're playing to the far left of their base, saying, if you want socialized medicine, if you want to kill babies on demand, if you want to do all that, we're going to shut it down for that as well. And I'm just finding it ironic. See, this is the longest shutdown I've been a part of, I believe, in my lifetime.
Well, you and I would have come to age. You're about 10 years older than me, if I remember right. Yeah, okay.
Almost exactly.
All right, so, but you and I would have been coming of age politically about the time of the 95 government shutdown.
Sure.
And this was Republicans off of the contract with America. And there was the famous episode. It's funny. I never have gotten a chance to ask Newt if this really happened. I need to do that the next time I talk to him. But the urban legend is from the era that Newt, as the House Speaker, and Bob Dole, as the Senate Majority Leader, were negotiating with Bill Clinton on Air Force One. And Bill Clinton is according to urban legend, reported to have said to both Bob and Newt, I need you guys to give me something I can take back to my base. I'll give you 80, 90% of what you want. But I have to give, I'm the guy that gave the speech, the era of big government is over in my State of the Union after that midterm. Mm-hmm. So, but I need something to take back to my left-wing base. Otherwise, I'm going to face a primary in next year's presidential election. And every time presidents face primaries, they lose. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the urban legend is Clinton offered that, and Newt and Dole said, you'll get nothing and like it, and walked off the back of Air Force One and basically cornered Bill Clinton politically into a position where he had to have courage he really didn't have. But because they gave him an offer that he knew was going to cost him politically if he took it, they forced him into a play to fight back and let the shutdown happen. And it happened over Thanksgiving, and it was disastrous. And Republicans got slaughtered in the next election. That's right. And that has been the conventional wisdom of government shutdown fights for the next 30 years, basically the entirety of the Boehner, McConnell, Trent Lott era in Washington, D.C., right?
Yep.
Except the funny thing is, if you look at the 1996 election, that's actually not what happened. Now, don't get me wrong. Bob Dole got slaughtered.
Yeah.
But Republicans actually retained Congress as a party for the first time in 50 years in that midterm election. The American people returned Republicans in control of Congress while slaughtering Bob Dole. So that clearly doesn't demonstrate that shutdown had much to do with anything with that general election the next year. And it was probably more about the fact Dole represented. Do you remember that last debate where he gave out his website? Do you remember that? How awkward that was? All right.
And Bob Dole says, go to Bob Dole's website.
I think it's just pretty clear that we were in the midst of a boomer generational transition. Clinton, he represented that evolution, and Dole represented a different era, and he was just, cooked from the beginning because of that.
And the thing you got to be thinking of, though, right now is that Trump's biggest concern is who has the majority of Congress after the midterms.
Correct. Because his presidency, with the exception of what he'll attempt to do in foreign policy, his presidency is effectively over if we lose these midterms. Between what Democrats will do with Congress, which is they're gonna impeach him on literally everything. They're going to take Hegseth, RFK Jr., take the most disruptive, non-traditional cabinet appointees he has. Mm-hmm. Like, they're not going to go after Pam Bondi, okay?
Right.
So, but Hegseth, and which tells you that's the problem. But Hegseth and RFK Jr. and those guys, they're all getting impeached.
Yep.
They're all facing congressional inquiries, and that's all that's going to happen for 2 years. They will do absolutely nothing. And at that point, you're going to see people in the party also begin jockeying for the future after Trump on top of that as well.
It's going to be chaos. It's going to be a mess. If the Republicans do not hold on to Congress, that's why I believe Trump knows this more than anybody. He knew it day one, almost when he took the oath of office. The midterms are crucial for him. So I've got to believe everything of his pulse, which he's proven to be right a lot, says the shutdown aids and abets me.
Well, we've already seen him break this McConnell, Lott, Boehner protocol, right? We saw this in the Tea Party years. Boehner, always went up to the Obama White House, negotiated against himself because Obama knew that he didn't have the balls to do a shutdown, and so there was no point to it. And Obama won all those fights, right? At the very least, he has blown up that narrative. I got to be honest, because my expectations are pretty low for Republicans as a general rule. They have held out here longer than I thought they would.
Way longer.
I think a smart and what's even more interesting about it is they're not in D.C. I mean, Mike Johnson has put them on recess until Democrats agree to their cuts.
Yep.
Which means they're back home. Which also means if there was a bunch of pressure out on the stump from their voters to say, hey, what are we doing here? I'm not going to get this check. I'm not going to get that check.
There'd be pressure on Mike Johnson.
There'd be pressure on Mike Johnson and Trump to say, hey,
back.
Unlike Trump, we don't get term limited out. We can keep this gravy train going. You guys are going to cost us our seat next year. So they're at home hearing almost none of this, except from people that likely aren't going to vote for him no matter what they do anyway. I don't know how this is going to turn out. The Republicans have stood together longer than I ever would have envisioned they did. But at the very least, the politics of this, for whoever takes over after Trump, looking at you, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, for whoever takes over after Trump, our base has been reprogrammed on this, that we can do this now.
You can stand your ground.
That's right. We don't have to give in every time there's one of these, CR or budget fights, and we can make it a zero-sum game. We can get something out of this. And the future of how the GOP will handle its business moving forward after this, I don't know how this one will turn out. I just know it's going to be different than what we saw the previous 30 years.
But it also shows who has the real power in D.C. Trump has the real power in D.C., without question. And you know that he's the king right now, and what he says in primaries or in elections matter a lot. But also what he says, obviously, in Washington, D.C. matters a lot. But part of that is he's won, and he's won, and he's won, and he's won again. I mean, his deal about we're going to win so much you're going to get tired of winning. I think what Mike Johnson and John Thune see in him, he's a winner. We trust his pulse. Let's do what he says. And you're right, Steve. I think courage begets courage, and Trump's courage has really given courage to Johnson and Thune.
Well, I kind of think you're giving him too much credit. I think Johnson sees his entire political livelihood is tied to Trump, and he wouldn't be where he's at without him. And he won't be speaker one more day than he wants him to be. Yeah. And I think Thune hates and detests Trump in his base, just knows he doesn't have the numbers of critical mass to oppose them. He'll get just absolutely run over. So he's got to go along with something that he clearly does not believe in.
And politicians are also very good at reading the wind. and they're reading the wind, and the wind is all in Trump's favor.
So what are the pressure points here? Because November 1st, we're hearing there's going to be a whole different class of people now that are not going to get paid. Maybe an entire layer of TSA agents gone, for example, and we're going to see delays during the holiday travel season, things of that nature, right? So what are potential pressure points here? How long could this go? Because this is Todd, your line from the Hunt for Red October. The hardest part of playing chicken is knowing when to blink.
Correct.
Right. Democrats want this to go on a little bit longer to see if those events cause enough pain that they get the leverage.
Right.
But if we go through those events and they don't cause the massive pain, and Republicans risk that, they could come out on the other side and a whole generation of voters is like, we can pretty much just live permanently without 35% of the federal government. We're going to be okay.
And by the way, the government
who's going to blink?
Not affecting me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. As a matter of fact, again, I go back to air travel. I was talking to a guy who's a pilot today, and a private pilot. And he said, I know enough about air traffic control to be dangerous. He goes, what you don't need, and I'm not so sure the Democrats don't want this, is to have some calamity take place, because you know what, the government shut down. Two is the welfare, the food stamps, that's going to stop. Is that enough to?
Well, since we found out in the last few days, almost all of that has gone to non-native citizens anyway. But maybe that needs to cease and stop.
But you're going to find out where's the pressure point at that. Mm-hmm. I mean, also, did that cause?
That might be the pressure point on Democrats.
Yep.
Yeah.
I also think it is so admirable. I do not know the guy. The guy does not want to be known, but obviously they let his name out to say, listen, I'm supporting Trump. I'm supporting the governor's shutdown. And I'm going to make sure the military gets paid. Here's $130 million. Pay your military. Mm-hmm. To me, that's America being America. So I give a lot of kudos to Tim Mellon for being able to step up and say, I'll pay the military for right now as well. So the pain, Steve, I don't know what that threshold is, but I think the Democrats, that is their hope. Get it far enough to where there's a disaster, there's a calamity, there's neighbors not being fed, whatever it is, where people say it's the government shutdown that's the problem. But it could be having a reverse effect on this one.
So a week from now, are you here next week? Are you here next Monday?
I am here next week.
All right. Is this still going on next Monday?
I believe it is.
Which would be after November the 1st.
I don't see anybody blinking right now.
But November 1st is also a weekend, so that first Monday would kind of be the first day of the post-November 1 reckoning we're heading towards that would actually be felt by people.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is that you have Election Day on Tuesday as well. And a lot of people are going to be paying attention to what's happening in New Jersey, what's happening in Virginia. They're going to take a look at what's the bellwether showing at that point. But I think next week, Monday, we're still in the same position.
What do you think, Todd?
I agree. I mean, it's what Trump wants in this as in all things. But also, the Democrats are clearly the party of chaos right now. They want the pain and suffering to be seen. They did it with the transgender kids. You don't want them to kill themselves. They're going to do the same thing. Look at the starving people. Okay? So then it's incumbent on us. On the right, set Trump aside for a second. Are we going to be the party of Christ? As you said, it's always Christ versus chaos. But on the right, it's often, if we're the party of comfort versus chaos, that's when chaos knows they can beat us, when we just don't want to be bothered. So that's what they're waiting for. Do we really have the resolve, or are we going to shed ourselves from Trump when things get hard?
Yeah. And I think Trump is going to show resolve. Remember, he got a lot of pushback not that long ago on the tariffs when he started doing the tariff stuff. And he stood his ground. He stayed with the tariffs. Nobody's really complaining about the tariffs.
It's the same psychology. You're absolutely right.
I think he's doing the same thing now with the government shutdown.
So could the comfort actually be our friend for once? Meaning that if we get to a point that people just
say, I'm doing well.
And when I say people, I mean the people that would ever consider voting for us. Obviously, most of the people, not all, because you're dealing with a lot of military families that tend to lean right.
Yep.
But most of the people hurt the most by this would never even consider voting for us. You mentioned Virginia, for example. Most of our lifetimes, because we're all, I think you're an old Gen Xer, right? Or at a very young boomer, I can't remember.
Old on this show, yeah.
Okay, but I think, so we're all Gen Xers. So until recently, the political paradigm was Ohio, Virginia, and Florida, determined every election, right?
Yep.
And the Republicans had to win 2 out of those 3, right? Well, Republicans have not really been that competitive in Virginia presidential elections since Obama. And it's because of how much he grew government and how much of those government employees ended up settling there in the state of Virginia and turning that state way more blue than it ever used to be, right? So I don't know that it sends any kind. Winsome Sears was not really looked at as a legit threat until recently in that race.
Mm-hmm.
And so if she loses, a week from tomorrow, I don't know that it makes a profound statement about the shutdown.
I agree.
But if she were to win in light of a government shutdown, then I think it speaks volumes, don't you?
Without question. And I'm glad you took a state like Virginia. They are so dependent on the government check.
Mm-hmm.
If Winsome Sears were to come out, and people they wrote her off a long time ago until her opponent said something really stupid. Winsome Sears is now back in the limelight.
Yep.
If she wins amidst a government shutdown, that's another way to stay entrenched. Trump to say, I'm not giving in. Trump wants a win. Schumer, you said it right. Schumer, Jeffries, everybody wants to have something go back to their base. I think Trump actually wants to have a win for America.
You do risk, though, if you're Democrats, you do risk people that would ever consider voting Republican get, to use your favorite word, Todd, comfortable with only the government operating at about a 65, 70% clip.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, what we may have to endure to get people to that comfort level is what the Republicans are risking here over the next, say, 30 days or so. All right. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you guys.
Todd, you have any quick thoughts on that last 30 seconds?
I don't think that's comfort working in our favor. I think if Republicans can do that, that's a genuine sign of revival. That's shifting their priorities.
You mean if they could hold the line for that long?
Yes.
And Republican voters as well?
Yes.
Because that's the first thing is you have to see if Republican voters start to crack or not, right? And so far in all the polling I've seen on our side, they're not. All right, when we come back, it'll be your turn to ask me anything. Stay tuned.